Have you ever called Eddie Vedder daughter? Are you only happy when it rains? Are you in the spotlight, losing your religion? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then it's time to break out your ripped jeans, tune up that guitar, and crank it up to 11, because today we're talking to Multnomah Drive on this week's episode of...
We'll be your friends. We'll be your friends. We'll be your friends. We'll be your friends. We'll be your friends.
All right, what's
Yeah,
up, everybody?
rock and
Thank
roll.
you. Welcome to another edition of We'll Be Your Friends. Thank you to Curt for that intro. We'll get to that in a minute. Today, we are talking about some music. We're doing some cool stuff. We've got Multnomah Drive on the episode, but first, let's kick it over to John. John, how you been? It's been another week. What have you been up to?
I've been up to absolutely nothing. No, I've been doing a lot, actually.
So what have you been working on? Anything cool?
Can I disclose this information to my clients? No, just some random stuff here and there. Just
Is it
design
that
work.
official that you don't want to
No.
disclose anything?
It's not. Our last guest, Nick, hit me up. He wants me to help him out with some branding and stuff. I'm
Very
excited
cool.
about
The
that.
Skyline Show. for any of
Collab.
you. Yeah, you should know about that
It's
one.
going to be fun. Yeah, and this, little that, and just stuff for friends and whatnot. Doing some album art. It's a new thing I'm going to try out, so...
Very cool. I'm stoked that you're going to do that. I know I've said that a bunch of times. But let's get to it. I know you've got a cool beer on deck today. What is today's, or this week's beer?
From Northwest Brewing Company, I have 3 Skulls Ales. It's a Blood Orange Wit. I imagine it's a wit brewed with blood oranges, which it is. I couldn't find anything rock and roll themed or music themed, but I did want to find one because they turn out really good. And I've seen a lot of good stuff from these, and so I was hoping to come across one. I know Mastodon did one, and Belch and Beaver does one with Deftones, so that would have been way more appropriate, but...
Yeah.
We got skulls on this beer, and that's pretty rock and roll, so...
That is pretty rock and roll. And speaking of rock and roll, let's get to today's guest. We've got Curt, a very good friend of us of Multnomah Drive. Curt, how you doing? Welcome to We'll Be Your Friends.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you very much.
So, Curt, today we decided to do something a little different. Normally we'll have a topic that we're talking about, but today we decided to interview Curt. Curt is a musician. He is getting an album together. He's been working on it for some time now. So we decided to have him on today, and he's going to play a little bit of tunes for us, play some of the stuff off his new album. So, Curt, why don't you tell us a little bit about Multnomah Drive? What kind of music do you play? Who do you play for? Just get into it.
So, Multnomah Drive essentially was an idea I came up with in probably not such a great time in my life. It was pretty dark.
It's a terrible time to write music. Just kidding.
is
It's like what
terrible.
the best stuff comes from.
It is. So, essentially I was going through this dark time, and I was living on this street actually called Multnomah Drive, and some of my best music that I started writing and kind of evolving over time came from that particular moment in my life. So that was where the idea for Multnomah Drive was born, just a project for myself initially, but something I want to kind of evolve into a project for the people to express their darkest moments into something beautiful as well.
Yes. Cool. And now, is that when you started playing music, or how long have you been playing music for?
It started when I was about 13 or 14, a long time ago. My mom, she was married to this real nice guy, and he had some old Fenders, and back then I didn't really appreciate the old style guitars. And
Okay, not the car part offender,
Yeah.
but the guitar brand.
Right,
Okay, I was
yeah,
making
yeah.
sure I was on the same page.
yeah, totally. And I picked it up and just started playing, learned some basic chords, and just, I guess, kind of became a rhythm guitarist. I'm no shredder by any means, but
No defeater of turtles.
No, but rhythm guitar is just as important. That's really like where the rhythm comes from.
Okay, well said.
Thank you. I put a lot of thought into that. So, what are you digging on this beer that John's got? What are your opinions? Let's bring it back to
Yeah,
that for a
let's
second.
do that, please.
I think it's amazing, actually. It's quenching my thirst.
It's not a lot on the nose, which kind of bubs me out, but it's got a cool flavor to it.
I'm just learning this stuff. So if anyone, for anyone who knows me, they know I don't really like beer. John's trying to turn me on to it, which is why we have this week's beer segment, or that's what we're calling it. This week's beer segment.
Yeah.
Good beer is good for you.
It's certainly not as disgusting or like impalatable as other beers that I've tried.
I like that. What's the one attribute that you don't like about beer? How do you always say it to me?
Oh, I don't like the hops.
No, I thought you always go, it's the beer flavor in it.
It's the beer flavor.
And every time I think of a beer he might like, I go, wait, that's got beer in it.
It's got beer
He
in it.
might not like it, but
No,
I'll
well,
try.
it's just it's probably because the first beer I ever had as a kid was at a house party.
Yeah.
And it was like I mean, I guess it wasn't even really beer. It
Milwaukee's
was,
best ice.
no, I think it was
Old
like
English.
The Beast.
Yeah, it was there. That's what it was. It was Old English.
Ooh.
Yeah, and I had
Start with malt liquor.
Well, going to this party, and these kids were like, "Oh man, we're gonna get some beer. My parents aren't home, and do you want one?" And I was like,
This
"Okay."
was last week, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was last week. And I was like, "How much for beer?" And they're like, "Oh, just like $2." And I was like, "Oh, that's no wonder people party all the time. Like, this is really cheap."
Yeah.
So I gave them $2, and I got to the party, and I had to split a 40-ounce with like some girl who I had never met before.
Was it warm?
Oh yeah, of course it was warm, and
That's
like
the best way.
I was like, didn't know if I was drunk, and it was just fucking awkward and terrible. So that's probably why
So that
I have
experience,
that underlying taste for any beer that ever comes my way.
would you say the experience left a bad taste in your mouth?
All right, that's it. That's
Where's
this
the door?
Is the last this week's beer
All
segment.
right, let's see you later, guys.
But no, it's not that bad. But I don't think I'll ever find myself sipping a beer. I'll probably just drink like alcohol because I can put lots of juice in it.
Gin and juice.
Gin and juice.
What kind of juice? I
Doesn't
don't know.
matter. But it's a good beer. It's a good choice. And I like that it ties into this week's episode. So thank you, John, for bringing it on. So, Curt, let's get it back to you. Take us through your songwriting process. Do you start with like the music, with the guitar, or you find yourself like jotting down lyrics and say, "Oh, this would be great. I'm gonna find something. I gotta put that to."
So it really depends, honestly. Sometimes I'll be playing for hours. I'll spend hours just playing, and then I'll come up with stuff. It'll either be a rhythm, or I'll be sitting there writing down just little, words or phrases, and it'll kind of just hit me, and I'll start playing something on the guitar that's inspired by the words. But it happens the other way too. Most of the time, though, for me, I'll find a really cool riff or chord, and then just makes me feel a certain way internally. And sometimes it takes 10 minutes, an entire song. I'll write it in 10 minutes, and words and rhythm and all that. And other times it takes me weeks or even months. Sometimes I can't write shit at all.
Yeah. I hate when you're at that point and you're trying to just drain every inch of creativity you have, and it's just nothing's coming out. And then, like you said, in 10 minutes you'll write a song.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That's the beauty and the hurtful side of just being a creative in general, or just trying to express creativity. It's something that's not always there, and you can't always rely on it. But when it is there, you make amazing shit.
Yeah, for sure.
That's what keeps me coming back and keeps me writing, is just those little moments where it's like, it's almost like an aha moment in a way. Not the band, but, the aha, like, hey. And you just come back for that feeling, because you just get super stoked. And I love that. It's almost like an addiction, like you just want to keep that feeling coming, so you just keep going and keep writing until you hit something that's super special and important, and bam, you got a great song. At least for me, that's how it works.
That's awesome.
That's awesome. Now, you just spent some time in the recording studio. That was your uncle's studio, right? KMS?
Yeah, KMS Recording Studios, yeah.
And I want to take a second to give him a huge shout out.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, dude.
He is going down in the Hall of Will Be Your Frames Legends for Life. So recently, anyone who's following the page, you guys know our good friend George. He is the bass player of Better Humans, who we're going to have on the show, so no worries.
They're going to be awesome.
They recently did a charity event, which is really cool. It was a free show for the community, and everyone was having a good time, but unfortunately, some, bad eggs spoiled the bunch.
Less than savory character.
Yeah. His bass was swiped. And then a few weeks later, they found it on Craigslist, and they tried to get it back from the guy, but they say that they think the guy figured out it was them and stopped contact and pulled the post. Long story short, that bass was gone. It was a really nice. It was a nice thing. It had a lot of sentimental value. And Dewey Paul Jr. He's a great guy. He's got some stuff. We're going to link to him. We're going to link to KMS Studios. He heard what happened, and he offered to buy George a brand new guitar, and it's already on his way to him. So definitely check out his stuff. This guy is a saint. He's awesome. But back to the studio, did you find that you were having a hard... Like, when you went into the studio, did you go in with songs written, or did you go there to write songs while you were there? Did you find it was harder to write in that kind of environment, knowing that, like, this is going to get recorded and be on my album?
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, no, so, I mean, I guess I play in the studio just to warm up or whatever, but I don't ever go there with the intention of writing anything new. I go there 100% with stuff that's written, ready to go, and if something comes out of it, it's a bonus. But I'm kind of a workhorse when it comes into the studio. I'll do something, I'll do 100 takes of something until it's perfect, because I want to put out something good. I don't want to just half-ass it and throw it out there just to have it out there. I want it out there, and I want it to be good, and I want people to like it and think it sounds good too.
Don't we all?
Yeah, I think that's...
And I think that is a good segue to maybe get into the first song. You brought a couple of songs with you today. So why don't we get into it? Here's the first song. Why don't you tell us a little bit about this song?
Yeah, so this is actually a new one. So only a couple people have heard it.
Ooh, you heard it first, kids.
Heard it first. Yeah, you heard it first on We'll Be Your Friends.
Exclusive.
Yeah,
what's
right.
this one called?
This one's called The Nothing. It's really about just kind of recognizing people that just kind of tell you that they care and they want to help, and then you kind of find out they kind of have a second agenda.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's something we can all relate to. So,
Definitely.
without further ado, let's get into it. Go ahead, Curt.
Give me time, heal your wound, retrieve the rust in you, stuck in between reality and elegance, your dream. Left me there while I was drowning, and I need to feel safe, I need to go back to shore. Feel like sharks when my blood's flowing, and I need to feel, I need it to I watched the sunset in your eyes. This curse is no surprise. Still feel the same consuming me, erasing all I could be. Left me there, but I was drowning. I need to go back, I need to go back to shore. Feel like sharks, and my blood's flowing, but I need to feel, I need it to real. Oh, you left me there, and I was drowning. Go back, I need to go back to shore. Feel like sharks, my blood's flowing. I need to feel, I need it to real. Oh, I need to feel, I need it to real. Thank you.
Woo! Ow!
like that a lot.
Wow, that was really good,
was a
dude.
cool jam,
Yeah,
yeah.
that was a nice jam you got going there. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. So, you touched on kind of what this song was about. Do you find yourself writing a lot of songs about stuff that's happening in real life, or do you think you're trying to tell a story? Where would you say most of your songs come from?
Experiences. Nothing that I write is really ever based on, like, I mean, of course, I guess I shouldn't say that. I guess there's certain aspects of it that are me looking at things in the world, but most of them come from situations I've actually been in, pain I've actually experienced, horrors I've actually witnessed, things like that. And if more people could share the way they really have felt, whether it's through painting or music or photography or whatever it is you express yourself through, just think if more people were honest, that a lot more people could connect and maybe understand each other. And that's kind of why I do what I do. I want people to understand that there's other people that feel that way too.
Yeah, it's a beautiful outlet. I mean, music in general, but yeah, that's a big part of it, I think. And I think it's a good way to make authentic music is to pull from personal experiences in the world and stuff, and it gives it a raw sound, and like you said, it's relatable, and you connect with people that way, and it's definitely beautiful.
Yeah. And I really like that he comes from a place of like he wants other people to know out there that he's maybe you've gone through something that they have, and here's what happened to me.
Kurt will be your friend.
Kurt will be your friend.
I'll totally be your friend.
That's what I'm saying. I'm bringing that up because it ties it back into us, and what everybody is trying to do here is we're just trying to let other people out there know, like, hey, you're not alone. Like, there are other people out here who have had similar life experiences, and I think that's really cool.
People say that a lot too, just in general, and I definitely have moments in my life where like I still genuinely forget. Like, I'm not the only one going through something fucked up or what have you. So it's a cool to always come back to that and remember that, and then have experiences like this to remind ourselves.
Yeah, and now I know that you prefer to write about stuff that you've been through. Do you find it easier to write about stuff that you know about, or like is it just that that's what came natural to you in the songwriting process?
I mean, I guess early on when I started playing, I just kind of played just to play, right? And then I don't really know what moment it was, but something like changed in me when I was playing music. I think maybe I almost started to understand it more, what it meant to me personally. And it was something bigger than I thought, And so when I started to understand that, it really was... I've tried to write in different ways other than stuff that I've experienced, and it just doesn't turn out as heartfelt and real, because if I'm singing about something that I saw, well, I didn't really experience that, so I mean I can't really speak on what feelings I could possibly really have in a situation like that. So I find that it just really has always come naturally for it to be about what I've experienced with other people.
Very cool. I like that. John, do you have anything you wanted to ask Curt about?
Yeah, I wanted to get more on the subject of kind of music you listen to. I know, like, Deftones comes to mind right away.
See, this is where you and Curt, I think, kind of relate a little bit more than I do, because...
Deftones for life.
Yeah. They saw your tattoo.
Chico 2020.
Because it's not that, this kind of music is not that it's bad or anything like that, but, me, myself, I find myself gravitating more towards, upbeat, positive type music, just because music will dictate my feelings, and I don't want to be in a bad mood, and I know that like that kind of music will make me just be like, oh, fuck, I'm gonna fucking break something, which I get as a point of it, but that's just not how I like to carry myself. But you two guys are like really into this stuff. You grew up with this kind of music. You're playing it now, Curt, and John. You're super into it. So maybe you guys can nerd out here and kind of draw me into what it is about this music that you guys like.
Well, I know. Just let me. I want to. One thing that I always come to is I listen to a lot of heavy metal, and I think a lot of people see that one way when they don't actually genuinely like it, and they associate it as being angry, and I'm being angry. But that's the thing. The way I look at it is, it's angry for me. It's kind of a therapy to listen to that. That way, I'm not the one raging and hurting people or shouting or what have you. Not that I've ever had that problem, but I think it's in everyone as a human being. So that's one reason I like I gravitate towards heavy metal. But I've always loved kind of reflecting back on my musical journey and like what I started with and I listened to and all the stuff I listen to now. And I wondered with Curt how that played for you. Like, did you just like Deftones was the first favorite band, or did you like, oh, I found this band and this one, and then did you kind of try other genres and sounds and then kind of come down to this favorite sound or what have you? How did that happen for you?
So, it's a really true answer. I've listened to the Deftones since they pretty much hit the scene.
Nice.
I started listening, I think, in 1990.
Yeah.
Just 1 year after their first album came out.
I just want to put it out there that is the year I was born.
I'm really old now. This interview's over.
Yeah, right. Where are you going? Come back.
Come back. No, but so you've been listening to Deftones since they started, and is that what got you into all this music, or was there other guys that you were like, oh, this is pretty good too, or Did the Deftones open you up to that stuff? Like, were you listening to like the Jackson 5 up until that point or something?
Exclusively.
No, I mean, I listened since I've grown up. My dad and mom were, they were around in the mid 70s, 80s. Their teenage years. So, I always listened to like bands like Boston and Rush and stuff. Like, the old school rock and roll. And then it just kind of evolved into like, I heard what was on the rock stations. I'll admit it. I started out, first rock band that I really thought was dope was Guns N' Roses. I mean, who didn't though?
I'll stand by my love of Godsmack. I won't tell a lot of people that, but they were my first favorite, and it's kind of a guilty pleasure now because I realize how cheesy they are. But I just
is what it is.
They have a spot, right here.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know if it counts, but if we're gonna talk about cheesy things that we wouldn't normally admit, I used to kind of be into Korn.
You always comment when I listen to it at a random time. Same thing. It's it's terrible music.
It's not something that I'll revisit.
I'll have to hook up with you on that one, dude. Because of the Deftones, they toured a lot with Korn, so I ended up listening to them early on in their years.
They weren't bad back then. That's the music that was being put out, so it wasn't bad. But
now they're kind of weird, but
like I thought the bagpipes were cool. I was like, that's different.
Totally, the bagpipes.
It's weird scatting he does.
Yeah, it was different. So it was
It's that backwards R, I think.
Exactly. I think that's what it was. The backwards R is really what got me.
It made me look at things in a different perspective. Backwards.
The backwards R and the incorrect spelling of Korn.
Yeah. It spoke to me as a young kid with dyslexia.
That's why I can't spell anything.
So what about who are some of your other influences? Like,
oh man, so a lot of my influences, I kind of started listening to other bands because of Chino, because like he's been like my musical idol for a long time. So I looked into what bands influenced him, and so I started listening to bands like The Cure, Depeche Mode, and bands like that. And dude, I even listened to stuff like Hall & Oates at times, And
Hall & Oates is the shit.
But then I go over to Coheed and Cambria, and then Meshuggah, bands like that. And by the way, Meshuggah kicks ass. If you haven't heard of them, go check them out. Check out Rational Gaze. It'll fucking rock your face off.
Yeah. We'll post the link throughout the week for you guys.
If you want face melting, so.
But yeah, Deftones, well, Chino in general has really influenced me as far as like my style, the way that I write, as far as like trying to, I don't like to use a lot of simple words. I like to try to throw a lot of like enigmatic shit in there, like that means something to me, but something you really got to think about. What does it mean to you? I mean, people ask me all the time, like, what does that song mean? And like, I'll give them a little bit of preview, but more I want you to figure out what it means to you.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite aspects of any kind of art. Like just like a painting, for example. Like you look at it, I always think, what was the artist trying to portray or feel or express? I go, a lot of artists don't even maybe want to know that themselves. They want to know, what do you see in it? And so then I kind of research, I kind of reflect on it, and what does it make me feel? So I always love studying that and wondering what the original artist. And that's the same thing with music. You can hear a lot of metal that sounds angry, like I was saying back, and it could be a totally positive song about love or what have you, and it's just still in this style that sounds angry. So it's really cool to kind of study that and think about that.
For sure. So why don't we use that as a segue to this next song? Why don't you just go in dry, play it, and then we'll try and figure out if we can see what it's about. What is it called?
This one is called Down Soul.
Down Soul. All right, here's Multnomah Drive with Down Soul.
God bless all the saints for God and me. Stand alone in the darkness, I can see. Left with my sins that you bestowed on me. My soul is down in the darkness, I can see. And I will Lord against the sun. What is it really you think that you have won? Such a sad, sad tragedy. My soul is torn, but I swear it's still there. Rest my weary head on the strife that you said. Heaven, heaven only. In this place I never thought I'd be. I'm still you, but you are not me. And I'm alone against the sun. What is it really? Think that you have won. Such a sad and simple tragedy. My soul is true, but I swear it's still me. Your soul is true, but I swear it's still me. 'Cause I roll on against the sun. What is it really? Think that you have won. Such a sad and simple tragedy. My soul is sore, I swear it's still me. Your soul is sore, I swear it's still me. My soul is sore, I swear it's still me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Dude,
that one was dope.
I want to say the word palm mute, but what do you call that technique when you kind of finish that off with the
Oh, the
kind of,
harmonics?
where you kind of like
Harmonics.
muted it a bit though, that little
Yeah, the harmonics.
yeah,
Harmonic.
you do that and
Yeah.
you add that little pause after. That's a great. I love that. I love that.
I've
feeling.
always loved that song. You've shown me that one a couple of times. That one's
That
one of my
song was
favorites.
a total accident.
You
It
fell
was
down
actually,
some stairs and like
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing. I know you. How'd you know? So it was actually a riff I had written probably about 2 years ago, in just a drop D tuning, and I was replacing the bottom couple strings of my guitar, and I was tuning them up, and I was just doing it by ear without a tuner.
Yeah.
And so I tuned it on accident into what is this? It sounds just like a regular played chord to open. I was like, oh damn. And so I accidentally came across
Is there a
that
name
tuning.
for that tuning, or is this like just a
It's
Curt
called I
original?
Have No Clue.
Yeah.
I'm
the
a really-
IHNC too.
Yeah.
If we have any music heads out there, try and figure it out. Play it one more time for us. If you can figure out
I like
what
that.
that tuning is, let us know. But go on.
I'm a really crappy musician in that sense. Like I can play rhythm guitar like a motherfucker and write music that people like, but if you want to know what chord I'm playing, I don't know, dude. Record it and go ask a
So
musician.
you truly don't know the names of any of the chords? Or
I mean, I
anything
know
like
some
that,
like
or-
basic chords like G, A, D, and I know some, the bar chords that are, actually, that are root chords.
You know which way to shape your hand.
But like as far
I
as
like that, though.
when I'm writing, I'm not like, oh well, it would go great with this, a C chord. Like I don't fucking know. I just play.
I know actually a handful of musicians, and I like to see that there are ones more like you, and there's the more kind of technical aspected ones where they do know all that stuff, and I respect both ways too. But yours is cool because it like you draw a lot just from feeling, and I think that's awesome. With that said, though, with kind of knowing a lot of musicians and creativity in general, I know in my creative work, I've collaborated and worked with a lot of different creative people, and I've had really cool experiences. I was wondering, with your music journey, can you think of any kind of visceral or really interesting experience in relation to music or playing it, or maybe a fan or another person you played with? Like, can you think of something that was just really interesting and stands out and kind of stays with you?
Yeah, so I was doing a solo thing, and it was, they were kind of like, I guess, charity events. They were for, churches would invite us out, or the community thing would invite us, invite me and Dewey Paul out to go do shows. And so I played a couple of these shows, and I happened to be at the grocery store that was near where one of these shows was played, and there was like tons of kids in this grocery store, and I'm just walking through, getting stuff, milk, eggs, whatever.
Super
And,
rock and roll.
Yeah.
The bread,
Yeah.
slice.
And, yeah. And all these kids all of a sudden came up and surrounded me, and I'm just tripping out because I'm like, what did I do?
That's terrifying.
And so then they start like asking, hey, aren't you the guy that played these shows? Like, isn't this your song?
Oh, fans. fan base.
Yeah,
That's
dude,
awesome.
and I was just blown away. And these kids are like asking me to sign stuff, like their binders and shirts.
Sign
and
my
all that
milk.
stuff.
Sign my milk jug.
And I, that's one of my greatest moments because, up until that point, I had played shows, but like I hadn't really felt like I had, I guess, quote unquote, made it in a sense.
Yeah.
And that moment,
An acknowledgement. It makes
Yeah.
you feel like, oh, people do relate. This is what I was hoping to do, is get people interested.
And from that
Somebody
moment right
cares.
there, let me know that I'm doing something that people like and care about, and obviously it touched their lives, and that's super important to me too. Young kids need people to look up to, and not to say that I'm like your model, citizen or whatever, but like I sure as hell will have a better influence on your kid than fucking Lil Wayne.
You're not rolling up with bazookas in your tour bus or anything like that?
Right? Yeah, no.
Is that a thing?
Yeah, you didn't hear about that? Lil Wayne
I
got
thought
like...
you were just kidding.
Yeah,
No, he was
a
like
random
totally
factory.
in jail. Like he got pulled over.
Bazookas.
So this is my understanding of it. I could be wrong, but he was pulled over on like during his tour bus was pulled over, and the cop was like, "Oh, it's Lil Wayne," and he's like, "All right, well, I'm sure we'll find weed, but like we gotta look, blah blah blah." And this dude just like opened a compartment, and it was just like hella full of guns. So
That's the gun compartment.
so many guns. So they're like, well, now we have to look into this. They tear apart the bus, and they found like an actual fucking bazooka. I don't know if there was ammunition for it or what, but like
I'm
Lil
just trying
Wayne
to
was
figure
packing
out,
a
like,
bazooka.
Being Lil Wayne and being that rich, like what possibly could you need a bazooka for?
Well, when you're that rich, you're like, I want to buy something. How about a bazooka?
Yeah, right. Like that's my first goal.
Like
when
people
I
buy, like,
get,
tigers
they
and
get-
shit, I don't know.
They get me like 2 bazookas.
Yeah.
I carry them around
I'd
the
put-
backseat of my car though.
Yeah.
That's how you measure
That's
success.
gangster.
Yeah.
How many bazookas does he have?
How many bazookas are
Who is
attached
it?
to
Leonardo
a tiger?
DiCaprio? That's cool. How many bazookas does he have?
Yeah.
How much military equipment does he own?
On that note, I think you've got one more song for us today, right, Curt?
I do.
All right, so tell us a little bit about this one, because this one is a cover, right?
Yeah, this is a cover from one of my favorite musicians. Unfortunately, he is no longer with us, Mr. Chris Cornell.
Rip.
Yes, that happened earlier or later last year, right?
That bummed me out.
Yeah.
I love Chris Cornell.
I was never really into him as a kid. Like, again, not like anything against him or anything like that. He was a great musician. I know he touched a lot of people, especially you two.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't somebody that I got into. But, I know like Black Hole Sun, and I'm sure Spoon Man. Spoon Man!
Yeah.
I know me some Spoon Man, and he did touch a lot of people, and it is a sad thing. So you're going to be playing a Chris Cornell song today? What song are you playing today?
Fell on Black Days.
All right, so before you play it, why don't you tell us a little bit about why you picked it? Why specifically this song? Is it just because it was easy to learn, or is it something that you like? What's going on with it?
I really have always liked this song since they released it. It was on Super Unknown. I had the tape. Yeah, I don't
The
even-
tape.
The tape.
I don't even know if
Yes.
most of the people on the
Talk-
internet don't even know what a tape
It's saying
is.
I dated you.
They're like, you mean like
Tapes.
Scotch tape?
You're a Walkman?
On a Walkman, yeah. This archaic device.
But I don't even know what the song is about. As far as like what it really meant for him, but I know what it meant for me. Kind of like
There it is, exactly like that.
that's really what it was. And what it means for me will always be between me and me.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a great song, and it's super relatable. It's kind of got a dark groove to it. But yeah,
All right.
hope y'all enjoy it.
Let's get into it. Fell on Black Days, performed by Multnomah Drive.
Whatsoever I fear has come alive. Whatsoever I follow became my life. Just feel long, black days, feel long, black days. How would I know that this could be my fate? How would I know that this could be my fate? And I shut 'em on the change, 'cause I feel long, black days, I feel long, black days.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes,
all right.
dude.
That was awesome,
That was
man.
epic.
I actually am familiar with that song, so that was nice to hear that one.
That's good.
Yeah, I love
Very
that
good.
one.
Very good stuff. Yeah, high
High
fives
fives.
all around. Round of applause to Kurt. Thank you so
stuff,
much
dude.
for
Rad
sharing your
stuff.
music with us today. This was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
So
Loved it anytime.
let's
Thanks for having me.
let's wrap it up here. It's been great having you, Kurt. Why don't you tell everybody at home where they can hear your stuff, a little bit about what you're doing, what's in the pipelines. Hit us it.
So you can check me out on SoundCloud. It's some old stuff, so it's still pretty dope. And that's SoundCloud/Multnomah Drive.
Yeah.
We will leave a link to that as well for those of you who don't know.
Oh
how to
yeah,
spell
there's a
Multnomah.
Facebook, but I'm not really Facebook savvy. I gave you guys the link, so just check that out.
We'll work with it.
We'll make it look pretty for you before we put it there. John, do you have anything you want to tell folks about at home before we get out of here this week?
I don't, not today, but just look forward to next week where we keep doing this and have more fun. And
Yeah, next week should be fun. So, yeah, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, if no one else will, we'll be your friends. Goodbye. Hey, everybody. What did you think of today's podcast? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Did we not mention something that you think we should have? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then drop us a line at WBYF Podcast on Twitter and Instagram. Join the discussion at our Facebook, facebook.com/WBYF Podcast. And for any inquiries about episode ideas, being on the show, fan art, or anything you want us to see personally, send an email to WBYFpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks again for listening, and remember, if no one else will, then we'll be your friends.